Oh my God. You need to get the police out to Long Acre Lane. My son is in the basement tied up at his house. I just saw him through the window. The police were out here earlier and did absolutely nothing. Both cell phones are on the ground and we can see the people. Him and his girlfriend are tied up in the basement.
Okay, all right, we'll get them out there.
Get the cops out here. I told them earlier and they wouldn't listen to me.
You need to calm down. We'll get them out there. But yelling at me is
unconscious. They're unconscious, ma'am.
Oh, okay, you said they're unconscious?
Yes.
Okay, all right.
The door didn't open the first time, so he hit it again. And this time, it gave way. When John Clarke stepped inside, his son was there on the floor, unresponsive, and just a few feet away, Lisa Straub was there too. But what quickly stood out was that both of them were restrained and duct taped. So, he ran to them immediately, pulling at the plastic, trying to free them. Then he tried CPR, but it didn't change anything. However, the house around him told the rest of the story. Drawers pulled out, rooms torn apart, like someone had been searching for something they were sure was there. But here's what didn't make sense. Nothing important was missing. And as the minutes passed, one question kept getting louder. If this was just a robbery, why were they killed like that? Because whoever walked into that house that night didn't just take something. They left something behind, DNA evidence, and proof that more than one person was there. But years later, only one person would go to prison, and the rest were never identified. And to this day, this case remains one of the most disturbing and baffling cases in Toledo. But before we begin, if you find this video interesting, please give it a like at the end and tell me what you think about the case. It really helps the channel. Let me know in the comments where you're watching from. And don't forget to subscribe for more. Thank you. This video is created solely for educational and documentary purposes. It does not endorse, glorify, or condone any of the criminal actions or individuals described in this case. Viewer discretion is advised. But before anything went wrong, before the call stopped, and before anyone started trying to piece together what had happened, there were just two people living a life that, from the outside, looked familiar. Because in 2011, Johnny Clarke and Lisa Straub were 21 and 20 years old, and they were at that stage where things weren't fully settled yet, where you were still figuring out direction, still making decisions, still adjusting. Johnny was in barber school, and he stayed connected to a wide circle of people, moving easily between different groups, and that came with its own environment, because part of that lifestyle included drugs, pills, late nights, and people who were always around. So even though he was trying to move forward, he hadn't completely stepped away from that older way of living, and those two sides. The one trying to build something stable and the one still tied to that social circle existed at the same time. However, Lisa followed a more structured path because she was working at TGI Fridays and also attending nursing school, so her routine had more direction, but she was still part of that same relationship, still connected to Johnny's world, and over time, those two lifestyles started to overlap enough that they influenced each other. They had been together since 2009, and at one point, they had their own apartment, so they weren't just dating casually. They were building something shared, but finances became tight, and they made a practical decision to move back into her parents' home in Holland, Ohio, which was in a more affluent neighborhood, quieter, more stable, the kind of place that felt removed from the kind of environment Johnny had been used to. However, Johnny's mother, Métis Vasquez Clarke, checked on him several times a day, as they were pretty close. Then Lisa's parents, Jeff Straub and Mary Beth Straub, left Toledo on January 27, 2011, for a planned cruise to celebrate their 25th anniversary. So by the night of January 30th, their home on Long Acre Lane in Springfield Township was quiet, and anyone familiar with their routine would have known there were no adults coming back that night. However, a specific rumor had already been moving around that there was about $100,000 hidden somewhere inside that house, and even though that number wasn't real, it was repeated enough to sound certain, and once people start treating a number like that as fact, the house it's tied to stops being just a place and starts becoming a target. So from the outside, the situation was simple to understand. Two young people inside, no parents around, and a belief that something valuable was sitting behind those walls, and in a network where people talked, where details passed quickly from one person to another, that kind of information didn't stay contained. January 30th, 2011, at around 8 p.m., his mother, Métis Vasquez Clarke, called to check in, and the conversation stayed light because when she asked how he was, He answered the same way he usually did. "Yes, Mom, I'm still alive," and he laughed. And if you tracked it through Johnny's phone activity, it stayed consistent from morning to night, because by the end of the day, there had been 51 calls. Later that evening, he spent time watching the Pro Bowl, and then, close to 10 p.m., he went to pick up Lisa Straub from her shift at TGI Fridays, and when they left together and returned to the house on Longacre Lane, they were following a plan that had already been set. And that plan included meeting Tiffany Williams and linking up with Zachary Burkett, and they would spend time together in the house that night. So, at 10:41 p.m., Tiffany Williams called Johnny for updates on the plan. Johnny answered immediately, but he didn't respond the way he normally would because instead of greeting her, he said, "Bro, what are you doing?" And there was a pause, not long, but enough to suggest he was reacting to something in front of him rather than focusing on the call. Then his tone became sharper, more direct. "Bro, what are you doing?" And that change didn't sound like confusion. It sounded like confrontation, like he had just realized something wasn't right. Tiffany stayed on the line, and while she listened, she could hear another man in the background, not clearly, but enough to know Johnny wasn't alone. Then Johnny said, "Who the hell are you?" And the way he said it suggested that he was trying to understand who had entered his space and why. He didn't stay on the call long after that because he ended it with, "I'll call you back," and then the line went dead. But that call was never returned. After that, Tiffany tried to call again, and there was no answer. And the same thing happened with other calls, one after the other, and none of them were picked up, which didn't match how Johnny normally behaved. Time passed, and after roughly 2 hours without any response, she stopped waiting and decided to go to the house herself. And when she got there, she saw Lisa's car parked outside, which confirmed they hadn't left. But when she went up to the door and knocked, there was no response, no movement, nothing from inside. She later described it simply, saying, "I pulled the door. I knocked. I didn't see anything, but one detail that stayed with her was how the house looked, because the lights were on, and from what she could see, things didn't look right." At that point, she didn't call the police, and that decision came from what she already knew about the situation, because she understood that drugs were involved. She understood the risk of bringing law enforcement into that environment, so instead, she contacted Johnny's family. When she reached Métis Vasquez Clarke, she explained what she had heard on the phone, that Johnny had said, "Who are you? What do you want? What are you doing here?" And that the line had gone dead. And she told her that she had just been at the house, that the lights were on, that no one answered the door, and that something didn't feel right. That was enough for Métis to act immediately, because she knew her son's habits, she knew how often he stayed in contact, and the silence didn't fit. So she called 911 and tried to explain the situation as clearly as she could, but her voice carried panic from the start.
And his girlfriend Lisa were okay.
Hello,
Toledo 911.
ma'am.
Mm-hmm.
My heart is beating out of my chest. I just got a call from one of my son's friends.
Okay.
Her phone number, I have it right here. She just picked my husband up too. My son and his girlfriend live out at Longacre Lane.
Mm-hmm.
I believe that's Holland. This girl says she was on the phone with my son and his girlfriend, and he was supposed to go pick her up. He was telling her he was going out the door, and all she heard was the phone drop and heard my son saying in the background, "Who are you? What do you want? What are you doing here?" And she said she just drove by the house, and the house looks ransacked. All the lights are on. My son's not answering, and neither is the girlfriend.
Right.
Oh, my God. I got heart problems, and my heart's beating out of my chest right now.
All right, I understand.
Oh, my God.
Is she still there?
No, she just came by here to pick up my husband, my son's dad, and I'm here with the other two younger kids.
All right, what is your name?
My name is Métis Vasquez Clarke. My son's girlfriend's parents are out of town. They left for Puerto Rico 2 days ago. I don't know how to calm myself down. My heart's beating out of my chest.
Okay, what did your son tell her?
My son was like, "Hey, Tiff, we're on our way out the door. We're coming to get you." And then all she hears is the phone drop and my son Johnny saying, "Who are you? What do you want? What are you doing here? Who are you?" And no more answers. That's all she hears. And then she says that she starts getting worried because neither of them are answering the phone. And she goes out there by the house and she sees all the lights are on and the cabinets look ransacked.
Okay, but you don't have any idea where your son's at?
He was there at the house with his girlfriend. That's where they're house sitting for her parents.
Okay, but she doesn't. He wasn't there when she went over there.
No, she rang the doorbell and nobody came to the door. Nothing. Oh my God, ma'am, I'm so afraid something happened bad.
Okay.
Oh my God. Oh my God, my hands are ice cold. My heart's beating out of my chest.
Do I need to send you medical, ma'am?
And at that point, the situation was no longer about a missed call. It was about a house where two people were supposed to be, a phone that had gone silent, and a sequence that didn't make sense anymore. So, police responded to that first call, and when they arrived at the house on Longacre Lane, what they saw didn't immediately match a forced break-in. Because the exterior looked intact, there were no obvious signs of damage, no broken windows, no door forced open, and from their position outside, the situation didn't present itself as an emergency that required immediate entry. They noticed the lights were on inside, and the television was still running, which suggested someone had been there recently, but that alone didn't justify going in, and without clear signs of forced entry or visible distress from outside, they treated it as a welfare check that didn't meet the threshold for breaking into the property. So they left. At that point, Métis Vasquez Clarke and his husband had to go to the house. Then she called 911 again because she knew her son's habits, and it didn't make sense for him to ignore her calls, no matter what he was doing.
Listen, ma'am, I am a concerned mother. My son was in Longacre Lane with his girlfriend house sitting. Lisa Straub lives there because her parents went to Puerto Rico 2 days ago. I get a phone call about a half an hour ago from his friend Sharita that some girl named Tiffany called her saying that Johnny and Lisa were supposed to pick her up at 11 o'clock, and she was on the phone with Johnny, my son, when he was walking out of his house, his girlfriend's house with his girlfriend, to come get her, and supposedly she heard a guy in the background screaming at my son, and my son saying, "What do you want? Who are you? Get away from us," and what have you. Okay, 4 cop cars were already out at this residence. They're not there, and her car is in the driveway. I want to know where my son's at. I want to know if they got abducted by whoever tried to assault them and rob them. And it's pretty funny that this girl named Tiffany, which is there right now by the residence, waits 2 hours to call somebody and report this.
Okay. Well, like I said, we were out there. There was nothing going on there.
Okay, where is my son and his girlfriend, and her car's in the driveway?
How would I know that, ma'am?
I need to report my son missing.
Okay. Where are you at?
I'm coming up to the residence right now.
Okay,
I'm with my cousin right now that's in the military. I want this girl's plate number before we go anywhere so I can give it to the sheriff on the phone. I want this plate number. Ma'am, I'm going to give you this plate number, okay?
Mm-hmm.
That this girl's car is driving. I'm going to stay calm. I am. Will you stay on the phone with me, ma'am, while I talk to this girl?
Okay, who are you going to talk to?
Okay, listen, here's the plate number. That is the girl's, the plate number of the car that this girl is driving that my son was supposedly pick up. I have a feeling you set up my son. My son is missing. He's nowhere to be found. Do you want to tell the police what you just got done telling me on the phone? Okay, come here. Ma'am, I'm going to let you talk to her because I have her blocked in Lisa's house driveway. Okay?
Okay.
Here. You tell them what you I will. Hello?
Okay, what's going on?
Okay, my friend Johnny and Lisa, they were supposed to come pick me up, me and my friend, from our house, and this was like 11 o'clock, and I was on the phone with his girlfriend Lisa, and then he hung up, and we all hung up. He said they were on their way, and then I called Johnny right back because I was going to tell him that I was going to run to the store and then I would meet them at the house. Well, he was yelling at somebody like, I'm on. He goes, bro, who are you? And then I called. He called him right back and he didn't answer. So I texted my friend Lisa's phone and I was like, where are you? Are you guys okay? And they have not answered to me or nothing. They have not answered the phone, and I've been calling. So I drove out to their house after my friend's mom got home, and nobody answered the door. So I drove back by our house to see if maybe they went to his mom's house, and they wasn't there. So his dad called my phone, and I was like, do you want to ride out there? And he said, yeah, and I brought him out here. And now his mom's arguing with me, saying I set him up. And, they're my friends, and I'm worried about them. And if I don't have, I'm worried about my friends because they were supposed to come pick me up, and they never showed up.
Okay. Are you out? Is there a couple officers? Where are you guys?
There's some officers out here.
Okay. Why don't you go talk to them, and they can help you, okay?
Okay, I'll put his mother back on the phone.
Okay. Actually, I don't need to talk to her. She just talk to the officers.
Okay.
Okay?
All right.
All right. Bye-bye.
House a second time, and this time they stayed longer. They spent more time assessing the situation and trying to determine whether there was enough to justify going inside. But again, from the outside, there was nothing definitive, so they didn't enter. But before the officers left, one of them spoke directly to John Clarke, because officially he couldn't advise him to go inside. But personally, he acknowledged what a parent would feel in that situation, and he said, "I can't tell you to go in, but as a parent, I would." And with that, they left again. So, John Clarke, Métis Vasquez, and the other people present decided to go round the building for any clue, and it was at this point that they moved toward the windows, looking through whatever angle they could find, and then they saw him. Johnny was on the floor, and immediately, John ran to the door, and he forced it open, breaking through it and going straight inside. What he saw confirmed what they had already feared. Lisa Straub was on the ground too, and there was a bag over her face. Johnny was nearby, both of them were down. So he moved toward them, pulling at the plastic, removing the bags as quickly as he could, trying to clear their faces, trying to bring them back, and then he started CPR, because at that point. But the response never came. It was too late. Later, when he tried to explain that moment, he said, "I went outside and lost my mind."
I found them, and I ripped off the bag off my son's head.
You found them tied up with bags around their head.
Then went to her and did the same.
And inside that house, everything that had been hidden just minutes earlier was now in plain view.
Oh my God. You need to get the police out to Long Acre Lane. My son is in the basement tied up at this house. I just saw him through the window. The police were out here earlier and did absolutely nothing. Both cell phones are on the ground and we can see the people. Him and his girlfriend are tied up in the basement.
Okay. All right. We'll get them out there.
Get the cops out here. I told them earlier and they wouldn't listen to me.
You need to calm down. We'll get them out there. But yelling at me is...
They're unconscious. They're unconscious, ma'am.
Oh, okay. You said they're unconscious?
Yes.
Once the initial shock settled enough for investigators to move through the house, the scene started to form a clearer picture, and it didn't match a rushed break-in or a simple theft, because almost every room showed signs of deliberate searching. Drawers had been pulled out and left open, contents scattered. The mattress in the master bedroom had been lifted off the frame, clothes had been removed from closets and thrown aside, and even the attic space had been opened and checked, which meant whoever was inside that house wasn't moving randomly, they were looking for something, and they were going through every place it could have been hidden. But at the same time, certain things remained untouched, and that contrast made the situation harder to explain, because jewelry was still there. Items that could have been taken easily were left behind, and a stash of Iraqi dinars, currency that had been kept in the house, was still in place. Then attention moved back to the victims, and the condition they were found in reinforced that same idea because both Johnny Clarke and Lisa Straub had been restrained, their hands secured with duct tape, and plastic bags had been placed over their heads and tightened, and that method didn't suggest speed, it suggested control. It suggested time had been spent inside that house. There were additional details that stood out once everything was examined more closely, because Johnny's wallet had been placed on his stomach. When investigators looked at Lisa's room, the signs of resistance became clearer because the door showed damage consistent with force, and inside, there were indications that she had tried to block entry, using whatever was available to create distance between herself and whoever was coming toward her. And when investigators moved outside to examine the entry points, they expected to find something that explained how whoever was inside had gotten in. But the ground told a different story, because there had been snow in the area, and yet there were no clear footprints leading up to the house. No pattern in the snow that suggested someone had walked directly to the front door, which meant the entry point wasn't obvious from the outside. So attention shifted to the garage, and that's where the story began to take shape, because entry through the garage explained the absence of footprints. From there, the reconstruction focused on what likely happened once they were inside, and it started with Johnny, because based on the timing of the call at 10:41 p.m., he would have been near the door preparing to leave. So when the garage door opened or when the entry was made, he would have been the first to see them. The reaction suggested he didn't expect it because he confronted them immediately, and then, based on the physical evidence, it appeared he tried to shut the door to block entry to stop them from coming further into the house. But that attempt didn't hold because the attackers forced their way inside. At that point, the situation escalated quickly, and Lisa moved away from the entry point, heading upstairs. And when investigators examined her room, the condition of the door and the surrounding area indicated she had tried to secure herself inside, using whatever was available to create a barrier. However, that barrier didn't hold either, because the door showed signs of being forced open, and once that happened, the control shifted completely to the people who had entered the house. Both Johnny and Lisa were then restrained, their movements limited, their ability to respond taken away, and the method used suggested that the attackers had enough time and control to carry out that process without interruption. And when that sequence is placed against Johnny's physical presence, weighing around 200 pounds, it becomes difficult to reconcile the idea of a single individual carrying it out, because overpowering him, controlling both victims, and moving through the house the way they did required more than one person. So the reconstruction pointed in one direction, it wasn't a single intruder, and there was more than one person inside that house.
Joey Jackson, do you realize that the police, in coming there 2 different times, the first time they stayed, I think, 11 minutes, the second time they came 30 minutes, they knew that the 911 call said that the son had said, "Who are you? Why are you here?" And it's the family that had to find the bodies with the plastic bags over the heads?
This is a horrific circumstance, by all means, Gene. Listen, in terms of probable cause or objective standard, whatever you want to call it, there's more than ample here. You have a phone call to 911 repeatedly by the mother. You have the girl who's describing the friend who's saying it's ransacked, the lights are on, you have the car there, and they're not there. It's problematic. And even if you say there was no objective, credible reason or probable cause, Gene, what about an exigent circumstance? Something needed to be done. Something needed to be done immediately, and it wasn't done, and it's unfortunate. And I hate to besmirch the character of our members in blue. They protect us. They keep us safe, but something is...
And it was at this point that investigators brought Tiffany for questioning to see if there could be more to the story, and perhaps as a suspect in the case.
No party.
There wasn't supposed to be a party.
No,
they didn't invite anybody else over.
No, it was a last minute, hey, do you guys want to come over and play pool?
Okay.
A last minute thing. Nobody knew we was going out
and
there.
what time, do you remember about what time you guys were, was this on the phone?
Yeah.
All right. Or texting?
No, it was we were on the phone.
But you're texting too at the same time?
No.
I mean, if you're not on, okay.
No, I had texted Lisa while she was at work. Because we had talked to Johnny, and Johnny said they were going to get pills when Lisa got off work. And I was like, can you find me one and I'll give you the money back tomorrow? He said he had to ask Lisa, so I text Lisa's phone. That's where the texting came in.
Okay.
Then by the time Lisa got off work, which was at, I'm guessing, 10 o'clock, Lisa had texted me back and was like, I thought you was a friend. And then that's when I called Lisa, like, no, you took that in the wrong way. It wasn't nothing like that. Then, that's when we was on the phone talking, and it was approximately 10:30-ish when we hung up, 10:40-ish.
How long of a pause before he said anything?
He didn't say hello.
All right, so he never said anything.
Never said hello.
So, all right, so you're on the phone. Mm-hmm. How long before you hear anything on the phone? What did you...
Like, as soon as he picked it up, he didn't say hello to me, but he was like, bro, what are you doing?
All right, I want to get this down again. Bro, what are you doing? Okay.
Okay, and he said that approximately 3 times.
Okay.
Then
all right, give me his voice. Was it, bro, what are you doing? Or, bro, what are you doing?
Yeah, just like that.
He sounded pissed?
Yeah.
Did he sound scared?
No.
He just sounded pissed?
Just pissed, yeah.
All right, so you hear, bro, what are you doing 3 times? Johnny sounds pissed. Mm-hmm. All right, then what'd he say?
Then the next thing he said was, who the hell are you?
How many times?
Once. And then that's when I heard the other person in the background. But I couldn't hear what he was saying.
So you overheard a voice in the
A guy
background.
voice.
You're sure it was a guy?
I'm positive it was a guy.
Have you ever heard it before?
No. Well, I really couldn't tell. You know what I mean?
Right. Okay. All right. So then what?
But then he asked again, bro, what are you doing? After he said, who are
After
you?
the 3 times he said it here, he
then
said it again.
Yeah, and that's when this guy was talking. So that's why I couldn't hear him. Is because Johnny was saying, bro, what are you doing once again?
All right. Did you hear anything in the background, like a door close, footsteps? It sounded like Johnny was. Did he sound pissed here again?
Mm-hmm.
Did he sound pissed here?
Yeah.
Did he sound like he was out of breath?
No.
Did he sound like he was scared or nervous?
No.
Did he sound?
Then Zachary Burkett, who was 17 at the time, was waiting for Johnny's call that night because he was part of the plan to be picked up. And when that call never came, he became part of the early investigation, where he agreed to take a polygraph test and failed it. But with no physical evidence linking him to the crime, investigators moved their focus to other leads. Then investigators decided to revisit Johnny's circle, and that circle was made up of people who knew each other and people whose names kept appearing as investigators worked through phone records and interviews. One of those names was Alexandra Cusino, and her connection to Johnny wasn't neutral, because by 2011 she was 21 years old, a single mother of 2, and already part of that same social circle, and her history with Johnny Clarke included more than one point of conflict. There had been at least 2 separate incidents in the months leading up to the murders, and the first one happened in October 2010, when Johnny and Lisa Straub visited her and noticed she had a pit bull puppy that wasn't being properly cared for, so they offered to buy it, and they agreed on $100, but only $50 was ever paid, and Alex later admitted to police that she had been angry about that at the time, even though the situation was eventually settled. Then, not long after, around Thanksgiving 2010, there was another issue, because Alex bought a car from Johnny, and according to people close to them, Johnny needed the money, so the deal moved forward, and she paid $750, which was half of the agreed amount. But soon after that, the car broke down, and when that happened, Alex refused to continue paying, which created another point of tension between them. So by the time her name came up again during the investigation, it wasn't coming from a neutral background. It was tied to a series of disagreements, financial issues, and unresolved frustration, and those details placed her within a pattern rather than as an isolated mention.
Do you use, with Johnny, pills?
Yeah.
Smoke weed?
Yeah.
Did you buy your weed from Johnny?
No.
Did you buy your pills from Johnny?
No.
Who'd you buy your weed from? I mean, I know all the players in this thing.
Yeah,
I really do.
No, I know you do. But see, there's a lot of, like, with this whole situation, like, I'm from the east side. I'm not from the south side. So, like, a lot of people over there I know, I really don't know them, though. Because
Okay.
they won't, like, talk to me. They won't have nothing to do with me
Okay.
because I am from the east side.
All right. All right. So, okay, after Johnny and Lisa broke up, you guys sleep together. Did you still see Johnny every so often at a...
We just, like, in trap, like, bumping each other, like, out and about, you know.
Okay.
But, like, we didn't really hang out or nothing like that.
Johnny had some good friends.
Johnny had a lot of good friends.
Right. He had, well, one of his good friends was Tiffany. Did you know Tiffany?
Yeah, you know I know Tiffany. Her father, child's father, was killed at my house. So, I know Tiffany.
Okay.
And we don't get along.
You don't get along with Tiffany. You talk to Zach a lot on the phone.
Mhm.
A lot.
I know. I call him all the time. It's my little.
What are you guys talking about?
I
Pills?
just tell him random
Weed?
stuff. No, I don't get my pills and weed off of him though. That's what's so crazy. But
So you've talked to Zach a lot
Yeah.
since this whole thing's happened.
that's like Zach's like, my family knows Zach. My kids know Zach. Like they love him.
What's Zach been like since the homicide? How's he been active?
The same.
Same as always?
Yeah.
But I know Zach's got a real bad pill problem.
So bad. That's why I'm glad he's in juvenile right now. I just actually, unless they took my letter, there's I wrote Zach a letter. The whole entire time where I mean, basically, I felt like he was putting me in a corner because he kept begging me to buy the car off him. Like, he really needed the money. I really need the money. I really need the money. I'm like, okay, well, I had the $1,500, but I didn't want to give him all my money, so I told him I'll give you half.
Where'd you get that kind of money?
Huh?
Where'd you get $1,500?
Just from, like, holidays and stuff.
No.
But
No.
I don't know if it's from around.
However, Johnny's father later recovered the car from Alex, and during the investigation, he stated that Alex had made threats toward Johnny over the phone, while other witnesses also reported that she had directed threats at Lisa as well. But that's not all. During her testimony, Alexandra Cusino admitted to sending a message in the early hours of February 1st, just days after the murders, and it wasn't sent randomly. It was directed at another girl within that same social circle, someone she was already in conflict with at the time, and the wording was explicit. "You don't know me. I do this kind of thing. Watch the news. People get duct taped and tied up and left for dead. You should have asked me and I would have told you who I am. Period." But Alex voluntarily provided her DNA to investigators, which did not match any of the evidence from the scene, and she told detectives that she believed Johnny and Lisa had been killed over money, claiming that Johnny owed a significant amount. Then, there was Anthony Watson, and his role in the timeline placed him closer to the center of what was supposed to happen that night. Because he wasn't just part of the wider circle, he was someone Johnny had been expecting to see, specifically as a dealer who was meant to come through that evening. As the investigation developed, police received information that brought his name up again, including a tip that he had been implicating his own brother in connection with the crime, so detectives called him in for questioning.
Did you see Johnny that day?
No, I didn't see him that day at all.
What time did you start talking to Johnny on the phone?
I probably talked to him in the morning, but when I started talking to him, like I talked to him every day, all day. You know what I'm saying? When he was
okay, but when? Yeah,
but
that's what I'm.
He probably called me in the morning when he woke up around like 1. You know what I'm saying? He sleeps in a lot, so he probably called me around noon, 1. And I probably talked to him, and then when I talked to him, I think I talked to him when I was at my mom's house, and then when I left, we talked. And
did he call your mom's house or you on your cell phone?
My mom's house phone, probably my cell phone.
So Johnny called in the afternoon.
Mm-hmm.
But you never saw him?
Not that day.
When did you guys start making plans for him to come over?
I was about to leave my mom's house. Well, he said he was gonna, when he Lisa gets off work, he's gonna come over. And then it ended up being, I think about like 9:30 when we got home from my mom's house. And then I was talking to him on the phone, and about 10:30 he called me, he said he was gonna come over, and then...
And when asked about the confession he made about his brother, he denied it.
Well, I'm gonna come right out and ask you, did you ever make the statement, I think my brother Chris did this?
No.
You didn't say that to anybody?
No.
So if more than one person would have sat here and told me that Tone said that he thinks his brother would have done this, everybody else is lying?
Yeah, they have to be. They ain't hearing from my mouth, I'll tell you that. People talk, you know.
I know people talk, but I think you're lying to me right now, Anthony.
No.
I think you have a feeling of who might have done this, and the reason you have that feeling is because, do you know something?
Then a few months later, Anthony reached out to the investigators with a few tips he thought could be of help. According to that account, 3 men, including a Samuel Todd Williams, had gone to the Straub home intending to rob it, looking for and for the rumored safe containing money. And he added that the woman who told him this had placed herself at the scene, someone investigators were already familiar with, someone who had previously been close to Johnny but had later developed strong hostility toward him. After providing that information, a pending felony burglary charge against Anthony was reduced to a misdemeanor, but any further details he might have offered never came, because in 2018, he was shot and killed by an unknown attacker, and with that, one of the few people connected to both the timeline and those statements was no longer available to be questioned further. However, DNA was collected from different parts of the scene, from the duct tape used to restrain them, from clothing, from areas where contact had clearly been made, and when those samples were processed, the results didn't point to a single individual. Instead, they revealed multiple profiles, at least 4 unidentified female DNA profiles, and 1 unidentified male profile, and none of those matched anyone who had been identified as a suspect at that stage. Then another piece of evidence was found, and this one stood out because of where it was located and how it was left behind. A cigarette butt positioned near the area connecting the garage to the rest of the house, and when it was examined, it didn't match the environment inside because there was no ash around it, no lingering smell of smoke, nothing to suggest someone had been standing there casually smoking, which raised the possibility that it had been dropped rather than used in that space. That cigarette was tested, and this time, the DNA results did produce names because the profile matched two individuals, Samuel Todd Williams and Cameo Petaway, and that connection became the first direct link between the scene and specific people. This was the same Samuel Williams that Anthony had hinted earlier. Samuel Todd Williams was 22 at the time, and his background showed a pattern that investigators had already seen before because he had prior contact with the justice system and had spent time moving in and out of custody. So his name didn't come up in isolation. It came with a history that placed him within that same environment tied to drugs and street activity. He was closely connected to Cameo Petaway, and that connection went back years because they had grown up around each other and maintained that relationship into adulthood, and people who knew them described a level of familiarity that extended beyond casual contact, the kind of connection where they spent time together regularly. However, Cameo had his own record, including multiple periods of incarceration, and there were reports from people around him that he had talked about wanting a bigger opportunity, something that would bring in more money than what he had been doing, which added another layer to how his name was viewed once it entered the investigation. At the same time, Sam's situation showed a different direction, at least on the surface, because he had completed his general educational development in 2010 and had started taking steps toward further education, studying subjects like sociology and criminal justice, which suggested he was trying to move away from the path he had been on. But those two sides existed together because while there were signs of change, there were still connections to the same network, and that overlap is what kept his name within reach when investigators began linking people to the scene. And when police eventually moved to arrest him, they did so while he was out buying cigarettes, and according to his own account, he didn't initially believe it was connected to a homicide because he thought it might be related to a probation issue tied to a previous domestic violence case, and it wasn't until he noticed the presence of federal agents, the badges, and the level of coordination involved that he realized the situation was more serious than he had assumed. So, in September 2011, Samuel Todd Williams entered a not guilty plea to the murders of Johnny Clarke and Lisa Straub, and at that stage, the case against him was still narrow because the primary piece of physical evidence linking him to the scene was DNA recovered from a cigarette butt found inside the house. Soon after, Cameo Petaway was also arrested and charged as an accomplice, and that placed both men at the center of the same theory, but the foundation of that theory remained limited because it relied heavily on that single piece of forensic evidence. However, the direction of the case shifted once Williams was in custody, because while being held at the Lucas County Jail, he began making phone calls, and instead of using his own identification number, he used another inmate's PIN, which was a method sometimes used to avoid calls being easily traced back to the person making them. Those calls were made to Stephen Petaway, Cameo's brother, and the content of those conversations drew attention quickly, because in one exchange, Williams spoke about a situation that had been planned differently, saying in substance that it had originally been meant for him and Stephen, but that someone else had stepped in to take his place. Stephen responded by saying that the person who stepped in wouldn't handle it the way he would have, implying that there had been some form of expectation about how things were supposed to be carried out. In another conversation, Williams stated that he had messed up and was going to be in custody for a long time, and those statements were interpreted by investigators as admissions connected to the case. Later, when speaking publicly about those calls, Williams disputed that interpretation because he claimed the conversations had been taken out of context, and he explained that he had been referring to a separate operation involving prostitution activities, not the murders, and he also said that when he mentioned messing up, he was referring to his failure to move drugs he had in his possession, which he believed affected his ability to secure legal representation. As the case moved toward trial, the pressure to explain what had happened inside that house increased, and that's when a new figure entered the investigation, because a jailhouse informant named Eric Yingling came forward and claimed that Samuel Todd Williams had spoken to him directly about the crime while they were being held in the same facility. Yingling told investigators that he had gained Williams' trust by presenting himself as someone who had nothing to lose, someone already sentenced, someone who wasn't trying to benefit from sharing information. And based on that, he said Williams went into detail about what had happened, describing entry through the garage, confrontation inside the house, and a search for money and drugs that they believed were there. According to his account, the situation escalated quickly because Johnny was already on the phone when they entered, and from there, both victims were pressured for information about where the money was, and when that information didn't come, the control over them intensified, with Lisa being forced from upstairs back down into the house, and both of them being restrained as the search continued. But the credibility of that account didn't go unquestioned, because parts of what he described were already known publicly, including the presence of Iraqi currency in the house, which had been reported shortly after the murders, and it later emerged that his wife had researched the case online during that period, so the line between what had been told to him and what he already knew became less clear. At the same time, Williams maintained a different position because he continued to say he was not at the house that night, and he placed himself at the bottom line bar, stating that he had been there watching the Pro Bowl with several people, including friends and family members, and he named individuals who he said could confirm that account. However, that alibi didn't resolve the situation either, because while there were statements supporting it, there was no surveillance footage placing him there, and questions remained about timing, especially when considering the 10:41 p.m. call. And although one of his phone numbers appeared to connect to a tower near the bar earlier that night, he admitted to using multiple phones, which made it difficult to confirm which device was actually with him at that time. So the case moved forward with two competing narratives, one built on the informant's account and the recorded jail calls, and the other built on an alibi that couldn't be fully verified, and that tension carried directly into the courtroom. In July 2012, the trials for Williams and Pettaway took place separately, and the outcomes did not match, because while the prosecution argued that the cigarette DNA, the phone calls, and Yingling's testimony established Williams's involvement, the defense challenged the strength of that evidence, pointing out that the DNA on the cigarette could not be tied to the exact time of the crime, and that neither man's DNA had been found on the duct tape, the victim's clothing, or other critical items at the scene. The jury reached different conclusions. Cameo Pettaway was acquitted because the evidence against him was not considered strong enough to meet the burden of proof. But Samuel Todd Williams was found guilty on multiple counts, including aggravated murder, kidnapping, and burglary, and he was sentenced to 2 life terms without the possibility of parole. So by the end of the trial, the court had delivered a conclusion. One man was responsible, one man was free, and yet the questions surrounding what actually happened inside that house did not end there. And since about 5 DNA were at the crime scene, it meant justice was never fully served. And that brings us to the end of this case. What are your thoughts on this case? Let us know in the comments. If this story shook you, there's more on the channel that dives into cases just as haunting. Don't forget to subscribe, hit that like button, and share this video. It helps keep these stories from being forgotten. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.